Hello, and welcome to some further post MP patch testing. I've heard bad things about Ignite, especially for the application of it with Warpath. So I decided to do some testing on my own. I have pretty much insane gear for Warpath, right? Like, honestly, I think that very few of my characters have gotten to this point. I've min-maxed as much as possible. For example, Tier 7 attack speed, Tier 5 increased elemental damage, Firestarter's Torch, with 35% more fire damage to enemies afflicted by spreading flame. That's just a straight up 35% multiplier on top of Ignite, which is why I was very excited when the scepter dropped and we were announced that we were going to play with it. Wings of Argentus. It's a very much love-hate relationship. It lost 20% damage reduction, which was a more multiplier, and, it wasn't as good as an increase damage reduction. It was a less damage reduction, but it's still quite significant. It did, however, get +1 to fire melee attacks, which Warpath is, and that +1 level might be enough for you not to worry about getting extra Warpath levels. That might not be necessary at all. Regular fire damage over time, fire damage, ignite duration, health, and a shit ton of armor helmet. Tier 7. Elemental damage over time on a Bleeding Heart, making it like literally one of the best things I could get. Naturally, you can get better suffixes than dodge, but it's something. This is a painful truth. These are all triple T5s on my Sun Wreath. Yeah, it does give me like 50% ignite chance. It has fire damage and fire resistance on it. The extra flat melee damage kind of works because as a second weapon, we're using a Tier 7 attack speed Ivorine with a Tier 5 chance to bleed, which gets automatically converted. I'll show you the Warpath tree in a second. Generic belt, but it had the maximum percent life and the word. This is this rings, the Sun Wreath's brother. I used to have two of these. I just wanted the critical strike avoidance on Sun Wreath, and that's the one thing I didn't get. It had a 75% chance of happening, and as you can note, my actual Sun Wreath with 3 LP just got the life, increased elemental damage over time, and increased damage over time. It literally missed the one thing that I wanted it to get, which was the massive 71% critical strike avoidance. I'm using the same boots because, ton of HP, tier 7 vitality. Burning Avarice with no LP because I don't like to farm Soulfire Bastion that much. I usually prefer super tanky characters for that. I'm not sure if this guy's going to cut it. We're going to do some testing. And a pretty generic, not really that good Soulfire with all resist while channeling, which is necessary because I am using the node that makes your elemental resists go down as you're channeling Warpath to make it manageable and cost 0. Then some generic damage over time, ignite on hit, damage over time, ignite on hit, and only one of these has indeed health, and then I just stacked health everywhere. This is only a 189 monolith empowered, so 189 corruption, and the reason for that is, well, I didn't play this guy so much. This is a different paladin, all right? I was kind of lazy to do any of my other paladins into really high content, so I propose something to you. For the purpose of this testing, I'm going to stack 2 damage modifiers, and I'm going to try to do this in a triple boss fight to make it kind of fair and square, so I can simulate at least 200 something corruption ignite, see exactly how that goes. I think this is going to be a pretty good use. If you're not convinced by this, I'm also going to probably attempt Jewel Rafford, which is going to be horrible. Just because Warpath, you don't have a lot of investment in area. I understand EHG's position of, hey, you just want a pseudo melee skill just so you can say you play melee, but it covers your entire screen and it's kind of pseudo ranged. What's that all about? So yeah, I get that. That's why Warpath has a limited area. Most of our points were invested into damage. Right now, Tooltip shows me 114k. It varies a bit because I have Reen, even with like no crit, still kind of crits, right? Like it kind of crits, which is fine. You can see the stacks right there. It's the Flaming Little Sword. each one of those stacks gives me 5% increased melee multiplier, critical strike multiplier, and of course 5% increased damage over time. So when you see 6, that means 30% basically fire damage, which is fine. I'm welcoming it. It's not bad. I also consider that it's pretty cute because, you know, so for example, I crit 1000 something, you know, on one of these regular mobs. That's not so bad in terms of leech. Remember, we're using a bleeding heart, so our ignites leech, but they need to be stacked to do any kind of significant leech. And obviously, direct damage also really, really helps with this because it's just direct damage. Leeching through it is going to be easier. Damage isn't that spectacular. I see that I can probably get to like 200 ignite stacks. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, the EHG team. Now that we can track proper, amount of damaging ailment over time that we're applying to mobs, I've seen some insane numbers. My Beastmaster, which I'm probably going to pimp out somewhere next week, is already kind of getting 1000 plus armor shred stacks on mobs, which is it's not that useful because armor shred has very harsh diminishing returns, but the idea that you could do it is just phenomenal. I never thought that I would be able to do that, to stack 1000 armor shred stacks. And it's funny because obviously it shows 9999 plus because sorry, 999 plus, because it can't show you over 1000, and I respect that, right? That's okay. Yeah, so this particular character is not in a very difficult empowered monolith position. I really don't have a lot of, things to showcase with it, unfortunately. I wish it was around like 400, 300, let's say. Let's not get greedy, because that's when good stuff starts to drop, and that's when people generally say increases in gold start to have very harsh diminishing returns past 250, 300. So in reality, really, there is no need to farm deeper except for, obviously, bragging rights. I kind of like bragging rights, but not arena bragging rights. So let's have a look at what we got here. Right now, this is Empowered Spirits of Fire, 185 corruption only. Sorry, I don't have time. I'm a working guy. I don't have time to farm more on every character, but I have enemies deal 42% increased damage, enemies deal 75% increased damage, compared with the 92 more health and damage. So I have, like, what? 117% increased monster damage. Just to make it fair and square, I think I should probably get something more, but not avoidance. Oh, what else is good here? Health and damage. All right, you know what? Let's run Volcanic City really quickly, while I'll talk about the skill set at the beginning, and then you'll see a triple boss fight and decide if this is the build for you. Sorry, I should have stacked all of these before I started recording. 1 point into AoE, 5 out of 5 points in Whirling Steel, simply because this more damage multiplier does not specify hit. For the new players out there, if you have a node like Whirling Steel where it says this skill deals more damage, no mention of hit, that means every damaging ailment applied by that, such as Electrify, Ignite, Poison, Bleed, Frostbite, they're all going to benefit from this 40% multiplier. Obviously, if you use dual wielding, it's going to be 80%. We go to 5 out of 5 Cyclone of War. This has really good use in this particular case. Eye of Reen plus a Scepter is like the dream combo. The Scepter gives me 100% fire penetration with Warpath, so as I'm spinning around, I get 100% fire penetration, just because I have a Scepter equipped. And on the other hand, because I have an Eye of Reen, I also get global base critical strike chance, which means my base critical strike chance is at least like 15% for melee, which means I get some nice Eye of Reen procs, that 5% fire damage over time that can stack. 2 points in Unchained, 1 point in Reckless Spin. This is the default combo to make Warpath early leveling sufferable because you no longer need any kind of mana. The channeling cost on it goes to 0. For the new players out there, there is a mana cost, but there's also a channeling cost. The activation is 1, but the channeling is usually 8. So with 2 points here, -4, and 1 point here, -6, it's good. But you still have to combat the -30% elemental resistance. 1 point just to move. I would put more points here if I had more points in Warpath, but I went for maximum damage, so I got Gorebringer. This is because Warpath suffers from diminishing returns. It only has a 60% chance to apply ailments. This 30% chance is not affected by it in any form or way. Might not be a good investment, seeing as I can reach 200%, 200, ignite stacks. If I were to take points out of this, I would just make it go faster, or make the mana cost 0 without having to suffer the -30% elemental resistance. Then obviously we make it into a fire skill. So now Thornslinger, for example, the belt with +1 fizz does not work on it anymore because it's converted to fire. It even says so, swaps Warpath's physical tag for a fire tag. And of course, melee fire damage to ignite it, again, works with Leech because we're using a bleeding heart, and fire penetration with ignite. I'm not sure if there's a value where this stops working very well, but this is my setup so far. I really don't like to use Warrior's Fury or War Slash or Giant Splitter or whatever, because I think playing Warpath gimmicky defeats the point. It has to be smooth, comfortable, and efficient. Okay, Holy Aura. I always take the health regen and purification just because poison resist I usually ignore, but if you get into higher difficulty, you kind of need it. Endurance, elemental resistance, really good, especially to combat the -30% we get by speccing like this into Warpath. Ignite, fire penetration, 3 points in global fire damage, 3 points in attack speed, just because spinning more means more ignites. And I took Flame Burst and, well, 1 point in improved Flame Burst. Flame Burst is good because basically it's another spell that also applies ignites, and 1 point here gives it 50% more damage when it does. And again, this also affects ignites because it does not specify Flame Burst hit. This also works with basically our volatile reversal, which is standard. Void Rift, so you attack with 2 Void Rifts if you're on top of the mob. This is combined with Time Rifts, enemy damage over time taken 60%. So basically it's a lot. This is a more multiplier for any dot, no matter what you play. As a paladin, you kind of got to get volatile reversal. It's just too good. I don't like builds that use it all the time and you have to backtrack and move back and forth, but I love it for Time Rifts or Harbinger of Dust, which does the same, but for hits. It's 30% more hit damage taken by mobs. The rest is a global attack speed, move speed, things to make it comfortable. We don't need the mana because, again, Warpath costs 0. The only mana cost we're paying is Holy Aura, which has a 10-second cooldown and a 30 mana cost, so we're good on that. We can use sigils because I'm not using Ravenous Void for gloves. I gave up on that idea. One of the reasons for that is the fact that they changed iron sigils here, and now it gives endurance threshold. I can stack these before a boss. I can see myself doing that. That's not so bad. I mean, 45 multiplied by 4, 180 endurance is like a tier 7 endurance roll on a relic. It's good to have this other stuff for free. You also get like ignite chance per sigil, so having 4, that's 120. And obviously I really like sigils on kill because I really hate using it. Remember, if you're using sigils and you want them to just generate automatically, put them on your bar. If you don't put them on your bar, they will not happen just when you kill mobs. It has to be on your skill bar. And finally, we have 2 choices here. We can go with Rebuke. I took a very defensive route, had some leftover points, so I went into Spreading Flames because my Scepter gives me 35% more fire damage for enemies affected by Spreading Flames. So let's say that I spin on a boss, it doesn't attack. I'd rather Rebuke, survive the hit, but while I'm rebuking, reapply Spreading Flames. Why not? I think it's good because when you start spinning again, you get back to full damage, including that 35% more that I have on my Scepter. The other choice, outside of Rebuke, which is a good survivability skill, would obviously be Smite. Smite has some advantages to it. First, you can definitely make it do Spreading Flames, so it's a similar thing. Just in case you haven't Warpathed around a boss, you can use Smite, and you can use it as a teleporting skill. You go this route, Holy Wave, Righteous Fury. You can also take a Righteous Flurry for 20% increased attack speed. But I already have like tier 7 attack speed on both of my weapons, and I'm using a sword, which gives me another 30%. Like, how much is too much, right? I'm going to desync the server if I keep doing this up. And of course, Descend, which makes it into a teleport skill that needs a mob or a destructible target. So you cast it, and it just teleports you where the smite lands. This is good because it also gives you the buff, like 20% increased attack speed. And of course, there's some things. Detonate enemies, ignite chance by itself, so you can also apply some ignites with Smite. The problem that I found is if you have no cast speed, the animation from stopping spinning and casting Smite and being teleported there is very long. It's not that long, but it feels very long. And most of your defenses happen while you spin. I'm using the same mechanical trick that I showed other people in the past, which is we do not take fire resistance shred at all. We take armor white channeling. It's a much better defense. How do we get fire rest shred, you say? Well, if we go to Paladin, we simply realize that, hey, what's with 12 points in Forge Guard? We take Battle Hardened, 1 point in Weapon Master, technically only 1 point in Peltast, and then 2 points in Shield Breaker. So if you start spinning and you pass a mob like this, you're going to be starting to throw at, axes, basically, and these axes will shred 2 stacks of fire resistance and physical resistance per axe thrown. Do not worry about the mana cost, because these thrown axes that we have in the base Sentinel tree with Axe Thrower have no mana cost, so 12 mana doesn't really apply. So once I'm spinning, I have 51% armor, which is pretty good, and I kind of countered most of the most of the elemental resistance reduction that I took, so I can make Warpath cost 0. I'm just trying to make this hard enough for you guys to realize that maybe this build can do like 350, 400 with the kind of gear I have. You don't even need necessarily Firestarter. You can do very well with 2 Eyes of Reen, simply because Eye of Reen has like a huge chance to ignite with melee attacks. It's like 200%. And yeah, it's a really good starter weapon. You just farm for Wings of Argentus because it's one of the more defensive things, and it gives you +2 to Warpath, which is great. And after that, you just get some Eye of Reens and you're done. Once you have a fire starter scepter like I do with some LP, then you can experiment, try to get it with attack speed, and do all of the shenanigans that I did. Also, Immortal Eyes are bugged, because if you do too much damage to them, they do not do their animation before exploding, they just explode instantly. And I think we should probably not be penalized for, killing mobs faster. Oh, see what I mean? Once you stop, your your stuff kind of goes down. Your defenses are considerably reduced. Just as a test thing right now, I'm going to start refilling my pots. I do not know why we don't spawn with full pots. It's kind of ridiculous, but whatever. And I also wanted to show you that once you stop spinning, damage can definitely get you. Remember, while you move, you have 20% damage reduction from Wings of Argentus. Not while you're channeling, not while you're spinning, while you move. So the second you stop, you lose armor while channeling, you lose all resistance while channeling in my case, because that's what I have on my relic, and bad things happen. You saw, like, I just sat in a pool of necrotic, my resists were probably 0 or very close to 0, so I got absolutely decimated by a puddle. Alright, there we go. Melee attack speed. I always take melee attack speed and cast speed. I don't know why, I'm just so drawn to making these absurd uniques with like 1000% like cast speed and just see how fast I can go. Another pretty good unique that we talked about in the past. Very nice, very nice. That works. And finally, let's go for a boss fight right now. So only 185 corruption like I showed you, but this time I have 42, 75, and 45 health and damage. So I've stacked quite a bit. This would be the equivalent of like probably a 250, right? Also, I chose this to make it harder because I have 3 bosses here in Spirits of Fire, and I want to see exactly how well I do, to be honest with you. So, strategy is get hit, get chunked for massive amounts of damage, activate Holy Aura. I don't really know exactly how many stacks of Ignite I've put on them so far. 150. Yeah, it's about 100 something. It's not that, great. But I'm damaging all three of them at the same time. All right, those circles that you see now, those are really bad. So when they do that, I really can't be that close, but I still have to find a nice, decent way to ignite them because if they hit me with boulders, I also have to be able to leech it back. So right now, I think that, yeah, this feels like a 250 corruption. Definitely feels like a 250 corruption. Notice that I've activated my Holy Aura quite a few times. No problem. Everything works. I still think that Paladin got really, really hit in terms of survivability, which was one of their main things. So I don't think I can recommend going too deep with. Great, dude. I have to keep the current. I don't think you can get too deep with it, but it's fun. It's okay. Some of us prefer spin to win. Carpal tunnel is a horrible thing to have. So this is a very comfortable guide that can get you rolling really quickly. I'm going to try to upload some dungeon fighting with it, like tier 4s and stuff. But right now I think the video is absolutely long enough. Thank you so much for watching. Ignite Fire Paladin. I'm still in the air, man. I don't know. I feel like the nerf to duration for Ignite is going to be specifically harsh for Paladin. It might not seem like a lot, but I feel like we lost a lot of damage. Even when you can stack like 180 stacks on a boss, damage isn't that impressive. Survivability also took a hit. Sigils, Wings of Argentus itself. Yeah. This one is basically, we're gonna see. Right now it survived, but I don't think this can go to 450, 500 like it used to in the past. So it's a wash for me right now. It needs more testing. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you in my next video.